Are you wanting to upgrade your wiring harness in your classic vehicle, but you're not sure what all you'll need to complete the project? Well, this is the video for you, covering all the different connection types you'll need to install a Rebel Wire wiring harness. And this is part of my multi-part series for installing a Rebel Wire wiring harness on my 79 Bronco. So make sure to smash down that subscribe button to follow along. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so there's many different types of connections that you'll need to make throughout the vehicle when doing this project. I'll just cover the high points on them right now. There are open barrel type connections and closed barrel type connections. The open style are like these spade connectors for something small, like let's say a connection for the choke or for the water temp sender. They do lock in, so you have to be able to slide the cover back and release that tab with a good punch in order to disconnect them. So once they do connect, they are very solid and good connections. I try to minimize them in the engine bay, but if it's like a single connection that is above the wheel well, let's say, then I would consider using a spade connection. The most solid and waterproof connection is this next one, and that is the weather pack connectors. It's also an open barrel type connector. What that means is it's open on one side, and so the crimping tool rolls it in and pinches it down on the wire when you crimp it down. These are really good for anything like the rear harness for all the lights from the chassis. So if for some reason you're gonna pull the body off, let's say to change out body mounts or something, you can easily disconnect everything that goes like to your rear lights. Anything that's gonna be below the wheel wells or possibly exposed to moisture, dirt, just road grime in general. I try and do the weather pack connectors. They're really good for waterproof type connections to prevent corrosion. They also disconnect pretty easily. That's just like they click together. You just lift this tab and pull them apart. It's similar to a lot of the OEM style connections that you see. They also have this waterproof grommet that goes on the cable. It gets crimped into this open style connector on the back end. So there's actually two different crimps that you have to do when you're doing these weather pack connections. The first crimp is for crimping the wire to the connector and then also crimping this waterproof cover onto the pin. And then you'll slide them into the connector, snap the back on, and then connect them up when you're ready. The next one here is a closed barrel uninsulated type. And these are the most common for the Rebel Wire kit. They actually use a lot of these types of connections, and you can use heat shrink over it and it will protect any kind of corrosion from getting in there. These are also really handy for, I had to cut off the instrument cluster plug and the ignition switch, and I left a pigtail of the old wiring on there so that I can reference that as I'm connecting things up. And the best way to do those types of connections, since it is to a plug that's gonna be plugging into something, is to use these butt style connectors. And I really like the uninsulated ones because they're not as big and bulky as the insulated types, which is the next one here. You'll notice like between the closed barrel, they're really all the same, but it's all about if they're insulated, uninsulated. So like these are insulated and it's got a heat shrink on the connector. So I could crimp this connection and then heat shrink it without using additional heat shrink. They tend to be a little bit bulkier than the uninsulated types. I really try not to use these, but if I ran out of uninsulated ones and it's gonna be in an area that is not gonna be like visible or exposed, then my next step would be for the insulated type connectors. And my least favorite is the nylon style connectors. These are by far the cheapest. And I did use these on a few instances inside of the vehicle. At the bus bars, there were some nylon style connectors that came with the bus bar kit. And rather than just like using up all of my uninsulated ones and having to heat shrink back there, I just went ahead and used these nylon style connectors. Most of the time, these are not heat resistant. So like if you need to put heat shrink on something, do not use these nylon connectors. And in fact, I would recommend just not using them at all if you can. The great thing is about this crimping kit is it has all of the crimps for all of these style connections that you need to make, and including more than I've even got here, which is for a solar connector. So I would say really like these three are the top connections that you're going to use the most of. If you run out of uninsulated, then you can always move on to insulated, or if you prefer insulated, you can always use that as well. And then again, the nylon ones are the ones I would steer clear of and stay away from. So the first thing I would recommend is buying a good crimping tool set. You can use just like a typical stripper and crimping tool, but I will say I've done a lot of projects with this one in particular, and it's a little harder on your hands. You have to apply more pressure. So I went ahead and upgraded my set for this project. I bought this full kit here, which I've included a link for it in the description below. And the great thing is you can change out all the different crimping types. It even comes with a screwdriver to release the set screws here and change them out. Has a nice little handy dandy guide here that shows what crimping style you should use for what type of connection. It also has a nice sharp wire stripping set that comes with it. I would highly recommend investing in a good set like this before starting a project like rewiring an entire vehicle. This is just going to make it easier on your hands. It's going to ensure a good connection at each crimp that you make. So a couple other tools that you're going to need is a good heat gun. This is a really good commercial grade heat gun that I've had for many years. It has a stand, which is nice. So like as I'm building light harnesses, I could just have it set up, make all my connections, flip the heat gun on, and then just heat shrink through all of them really quickly. I prefer heat guns over butane torches purely because a torch, you can actually burn the insulation on the wiring or damage it. I mean, it's really good in like windy situations. Like I use a butane torch, like if I'm out off-roading and I pinch a cable off, then yeah, I would probably use a torch to heat shrink something real quick. Invest in a depinning set. I just bought this like standard one on Amazon, and I've included a link for it in the description below. But basically, it's just got multiple types on here, and I think a lot of them are duplicates. If I put the pin for my weather pack in the wrong location, you need a depinning tool in order to get it out. They have little wings on them here that lock it into the weather pack connector. And so you're not going to be able to get it out unless you have a depinning tool, or basically it slides over it, pushes those little wings in, and then that way you can pull the pin out of the connector body and change it as needed. Thanks for watching this how-to video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash down that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Also, don't forget, I've included links to all these products and tools I'm using in the description below, so make sure to click on those and check them out. Thanks for watching.